Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review, daily update, not morning because we couldn't do it this morning with Derek being away on holiday and Josh heading down to Liverpool. But here we are, it's 3:17 p.m. and we're both able to come on live. Josh, you are in the bowels of one of the most famous stadiums in world football, Anfield, where you've just spoken to one Mr. Jurgen Klopp. How did it go?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, a lot of the focus from the Liverpool media is on Liverpool's form at the moment, which hasn't been great. So Klopp was kind of speaking about that, the 3-3 draw with Brighton. But within that, I guess lots of things from a Rangers point of view that are interesting. He spoke specifically about what he called Liverpool's special weakness at the moment, how they defend, how compact they are in defence, and how Brighton, for example, exploited that at the weekend. And when Liverpool aren't maybe aggressive or don't have enough aggression and pressure on the ball, how that can see them look a little bit open defensively. So that's certainly something that we'll be writing about looking ahead to tomorrow. Naturally, respectful of his opponent, as every European manager is. He spoke about Ben Davies as well. But yeah, I think the main takeaway is that you could tell from his tone, Liverpool are in a period where they're trying to rebuild confidence. Maybe Rangers are catching them at something of a good moment. So yeah, speaking to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst later, but good to be here, and it's lots of interesting things Klopp says. I can see you're excited to tell me a comment because you're smiling, and I can't see.
No, I'm just smiling at you saying it's a good time to face Liverpool. Not sure there's ever a good time to face Liverpool, to be honest.
Comparatively, but yeah. he was drawing comparison with the run that Liverpool had in 2020 when they didn't have any centre halves for best part of 6 months, and I think the fact that he's drawn comparison with that tells you where he views Liverpool are at the moment. What type of form they're in, the weaknesses that they have. They went 3-2 ahead, having gone 2-0 behind at the weekend, and then were pegged back again. So yeah, within reason, obviously we'll revisit that tomorrow. But I think it's going to be a great game, and the important thing for Rangers obviously is that they're coming into the game on the back of a win, and quite a comfortable win. And I think it's important for them and the atmosphere of the game that there's a little bit of confidence from their point of view coming into it.
Yeah, Josh, it's quite interesting, isn't it? I thought this when the draw was made, and there was a presser just after the draw was made. I think it was the next day, and Jurgen Klopp wasn't even asked about the Champions League games.
Yeah.
Because down there, the Premier League really is everything. And in a way, it's almost like the way we might treat a League Cup game against Falkirk, the way they see the Champions League. And it's almost an afterthought because it's just assumed that Liverpool will go through this comfortably, which is quite strange when you think that they were beaten so soundly by Napoli. And, a bad result here against Rangers puts them in a bit of trouble in this group.
Yeah, but obviously they won against Ajax, which kind of put them back on track. But you're right; they need to win their home games starting tomorrow. I think it's a little bit like before before the Ajax game, Johnny, when we were saying that the Aberdeen game, which was then at the time scheduled to take place at the weekend, it was obviously pushed back. The Aberdeen game was as big, if not bigger, than the Ajax game. In isolation to people, I was speaking to people over in Amsterdam, colleagues from down south, who were saying, how can that be the case? This is Rangers' first Champions League game in 12 years. You're away in Amsterdam. You've just won in Eindhoven 2 weeks ago. Surely this, the money that's available from a win alone in this game supersedes anything in a league campaign. But it's the context and the wider context, and that's what's important. So I do agree with you. Obviously, the Champions League, I don't know if afterthought's unfair, but certainly the bigger context for Liverpool at the moment is their wider form. Is this the end of a squad cycle? Can they bounce back, etc., etc.? So, but yeah, similarities to be drawn with what you're saying.
Got Who Cares asking, any news on Lawrence or Lowry? Well, who, Mr. Cares? We will be speaking to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst later on. What time are you sitting down with Giovanni?
5 o'clock, I think.
5 p.m. And we will get to the bottom of Tom Lawrence's availability. What I would say, is he going to play? I would be very surprised if he's thrown in at the deep end. I think best opportunity will be a bench place for Mr. Lawrence. As for Alex Lowry, that's not going to happen. Alex Lowry is still on the mend. He's coming back. He will go back into the B team, I would imagine, and get up to speed before he's anywhere near the first team. I think that's going to be a while. So, I wouldn't be kind of expecting Lowry to be back anytime soon in terms of the first team, based on the fact he was playing with the B team when he was injured. And they were trying to get him back to speed with match minutes and all the rest of it. So I think that's a little bit away. But Lawrence, certainly, we were told that was close. It was going to be touch and go. It was going to be potentially first game after the break. He wasn't available for Hearts. So we'll see what happens. But I certainly don't think he'll play. I think we're going to see a similar side to what we saw against Hearts. So maybe a few little changes. I'd be surprised if Rabbi Matondo starts, for example. I wouldn't be surprised to see Alfredo Morelos start, given the type of game it's going to be. Josh, your thoughts on the lineups?
Yeah, part of me thinks that he might opt to go for a back three. He did that against Napoli, obviously. I think Davies probably starts in part. You know, if you take the manager at his word that he came off not through an injury at the weekend, and that, you know, suggests that he wants to keep him sharp for Tuesdays, maybe opposed to getting a 90 minutes in him. I think Ryan Jack, you could make that argument for him as well, because he only played 45 minutes. My prediction would maybe even be that Leon King does play. I don't know how realistic that is, but the reason I say that is I just don't think you want to take John Lundstram out of midfield. That's happened a few times in Europe this season, you know, Napoli at home, Union away, and I think Lundstram does that role well. I don't think it's anything to do with his performance back there, but it's what you lose from him in the middle of the pitch, especially in a game like this, Liverpool tomorrow, the pressure that Rangers will be under, the physicality that Liverpool have available in the middle of the pitch. I think you want your best midfielder there. So I think it could be a back three, as I say, with Davies, Goldson, maybe King, given the availability, Tavernier and Barisic. We know that McGregor's now back in. As the manager said at the weekend, that's obviously a separate discussion to be had, because we've not really touched on that because of the way that the games have fallen. Probably a midfield three. I think it might be Kamara, Jack and Lundstram. I'd like to see Tillman in there, but I don't see that as that realistic. Maybe if he's got three defenders behind him, given that he's played away in Eindhoven and Ajax. You're shaking your head, but I don't know. Kent and Morel.
Tillman is work shy. That's something that he needs to make part of his development at Rangers. The hard stuff, the hard graft. He's a flair player. He's a guy that makes things happen in the final third. But you need players that are going to actually put the graft in for this one. This is going to be a really, really tough night. You need really strong mentalities. You need doggedness. You need defensive nous. And you're going to track your runners all day long. Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. And I would not trust Malik Tillman, based on what I've seen so far, to do that.
Okay, well,
as much as I like him as a player.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, as I say, the fact that Jack comes off at halftime is probably as good an indicator as anything that he plays. And Glenn Kamara, I was seeing him in the training photos this morning. He's obviously not been involved recently, which is another kind of conversation topic, maybe something to the manager will be asked about later on this evening. I think that's maybe your most likely midfield three. Kamara, when he's in form, we've seen it, away in PSV. He can be so useful in games like this, but he's not been in great form recently either. That's one performance in, however many other games where he's not been brilliant. So, I think you have to start Morelos up front. As good as Cholak's been, I think to not start Morelos when, as you're saying, you know what type of game it's going to be. Him and Kent, I think, will be, and I think it might be a similar shape to Napoli, where Kent at times was pulling wide to the left with the ball, and sometimes without the ball he was sitting a bit narrower. But I think that's your best bet. I fancy Kent to put on a good show and kind of coming back to his team, the team that he came through at, and obviously he looked better. Not brilliant would be too far, but better than he has done. It was his best domestic performance for me in a while on Saturday. So hopefully he can continue that. And I don't know if many people would start Cholak, because although he's a better finisher, you need to get up the pitch. You need to have a physical presence, someone to come in and hold the ball, and you'd hope that Morelos would be able to give you that tomorrow night.
Yeah, and he'll drop into that hole and hopefully release Kent. That's part of the attraction, whereas that's not really Cholak's game. I'm getting pelters here from Jay McCluskey, quite rightly, to be fair. Would you call him work shy to his face, Johnny? Absolutely not. They're like a maniac. He's a big boy. Certainly not. Work shy is probably a bit harsh. Fair enough. What I mean is a development point for the lad, and I should have been a bit more constructive than that. Fair. So you're probably right. That is harsh. But I suppose what I'm constructing around, he's been at Bayern. He's been used to teams that are ball dominant. He's coming to Rangers, who are going to be ball dominant most of the time. But when you face this kind of outfit, just like Celtic, just like Ajax, you're going to need to do the hard graft. You're going to need to track your runners. And I just don't think Malik Tillman, and I like Malik Tillman as a player. I'm on the Malik Tillman train, choo-choo. But that's not his game. That's my point.
I've not got it in front of me, but I'll look it up later on when I've got my laptop in front of me. But his pressure numbers in the league have actually been quite impressive, which is kind of in contrast to not just you, Johnny, but I think a lot of people have said. I think what there probably is more is that naivety is probably even too harsh. It's just that he's just starting to experience men's football, isn't he? He's played, I think, still under 20 competitive games. So you look at the performance away in Eindhoven where he has to follow a specific task and he wins that ball back because he's aggressive and because he knows where to be, and he's got the intelligence and the discipline to follow that in a kind of set structure. But then you're right, I think when you see him when he has to spend time maybe in his own defensive half, that's not something that comes as naturally to him. I also think sometimes attacking players, maybe their style or the way they carry themselves gives them a bit of a false reputation with their work off the ball and makes them seem something that was thrown at Rebo a lot when he first came into the club. And obviously, I think, as it came to pass, you were able to see how much he gave you off the ball. So Tillman, maybe he won't start tomorrow, but I think he's a good option to have in the squad.
He is one of those players as well. He's kind of got that laconic style, Josh, because he's technically so good. He's kind of, he makes the game look easy. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair, but I suppose the stats as the season goes on will speak for themselves. A few people asking, where's the big man? Where's the big ginger ninja? Well, he is in Helsinki, Finland, gallant pioneer. He is enjoying goodness knows what, but it will be Finnish hospitality, I'm quite sure. The hot springs, what else is in Finland? I don't know.
Expensive beer.
Very expensive beer, high quality of life, the snow, saunas.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be watching. I think he'll be having he'll be watching tomorrow night, I'm sure. But if Rangers do get something positive tomorrow, I think it only reaffirms the growing swell of opinion that Derek is not allowed to go away from home.
Yes, I mean, that's the thing. You've got Aldo McNaught saying, thank God he's not in Liverpool. And I'm starting to wonder if the reason why people are asking is because they're saying, well, we know that Derek is a jinx, and if Derek's not there, it must spell good omens for Rangers.
Football is a superstitious game, isn't it? It really is.
It absolutely is. But you know what? I'm starting to think that might be the case. There might be something in this, and the big man might be a jinx indeed. So maybe Rangers will get a result with his absence. If they do, that's it.
It would be amazing.
It's over for him.
I think just for the brand, it would be important to keep it that way. But he's obviously going to Napoli, which is what, match day 5?
Yeah.
Match day 5.
But we're introducing a new thing to that because I'm going to Napoli as well. So we'll see what my luck's like.
Yeah, we will, absolutely. But no, just me here today. So, and they'll be at the youth team game tomorrow as well. I think it's on BT Sport, but I'll be there tomorrow at the Liverpool Training Centre at 1 o'clock. So, yes, lots to come your way as ever.
The man who ate the boiled ham raw, one of the greatest YouTube names I think that we come across, Josh. I asked where the big man was ages ago, just getting ghosted now. Sorry about that, mate. I did see that. And when the other question came in, it just reminded me and I snapped it up. So I'll give you this little mention so you don't feel like you're getting left out. Gallant Pioneer talking about Derek saying he has a playboy lifestyle. He certainly does indeed. He is a ginger James Bond from Warrington. He's doing a remarkable job. But thank God he isn't in Liverpool, as Aldo McNaught says. Right, Josh, while I've got you on, let's have a quick chat about the game on Sunday, because we've not kind of touched on it based around the fact that the game on Saturday, not Sunday. Because we weren't on Sunday and because we weren't on this morning, we've not had a chance to really touch base on it. I thought it was a decent performance overall by Rangers. Not brilliant, but, in my years of watching Rangers play at Tynecastle, it's always a difficult place to go. I've seen very, very, very good Rangers teams go there and struggle. So to go there and win 4-0, you just cannot look past that. That is a tremendous result, and I thought overall the performance was pretty good too.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. There was a lot of discussion in the days after it because I think as a base layer, most people would accept it was better. Hibs away, the Old Firm away, Rangers, I don't think they had the aggression or the speed of attack. For me, it was things like the intensity with which they started the game, which I think Hibs away, they kind of ease into it and they play around the back. And we've got a piece on the website about this today, a much more deliberate attack to attack quickly and use Hearts' aggression against them, as they did in the December game. I thought overall better, not brilliant. It maybe doesn't teach us too much we don't know about Rangers, because it's not a game where they have to break a defence down using the midfield. They quite often bypass the midfield. Going long, obviously, diagonals for the first 2 goals kind of created and got Rangers up the pitch. But I think in terms of getting a little bit back to form, the things like the pace you start a game with, the intensity, the number of chances it created, because there's a lot of moments in that first half that you didn't have. Hibs away is a good example. Arfield, 2 or 3 balls where he should do far better. In the final third, there's a one to Ryan Jack where he was going through 1-on-1. Matondo has that chance where he goes 1v1. Arfield goes through on goal. Arfield has a goal chopped off. That's all before you talk about Cholak's double in the first half, and most of which before the game goes to 10 against 11, which I don't think really changed the game at all. In a way, I think for a period of time it almost didn't help Rangers, because the intensity and the tempo came out the game, and it meant that there was less space to hit. And I think the other positives you want to talk about it was Ryan Kent, who I thought looked far better. Obviously gets his assist in his goal. He's been trying to chop in on that right foot for about 2 seasons without scoring. But hopefully it's the start of a few players getting back into something of their best run of form. Morelos coming off the bench to score as well was important. I thought Lundstrom looked better. Still, I think questions about those 2 positions next to Lundstrom in the midfield. And as I say, if that's a home game where Rangers have to break down the opposition, I still think we need to see that they can do that consistently and can create chances consistently. But if you're looking at that game in isolation, is that a step in the right direction? Yes, I think it is. And as you say, to go and score 4 goals at Tynecastle, context aside, most people would have taken that before the game.
Oh, absolutely. And we can't talk about this game without talking about this year's Ballon d'Or favourite, Antonio Cholak. It's quite a remarkable run of goals and form for Cholak. And when I say that, I've got to kind of check myself, because it's not like the guy's having a massive impact on games beyond deadly finishing. And I mean, in terms of his overall game, he's not really doing much, but every time he has the chance, it's in the back of the net. Now, it's probably a little bit unfair based on his first goal, which was a wonderful 1-2, effectively. But you know what I'm saying? He's not constantly involved. It's just that whenever he gets a chance, it's back of the net. His finishing has been absolutely lethal.
Yeah. Well, I think you see for
the...
Sorry. I think you see for the first goal, you're right. And there's a balance to be struck, isn't there? Because if you've got 3-4 players in the midfield forward who maybe do lots of other things, they keep the ball, they come towards the ball, but they don't put the ball in the back of the net. I think the contrast of having a player who does do that, he scored, I think it's 1.23 goals for the 90 minutes he's been on the pitch, per 90, sorry. For the minutes he's been on the pitch this season in the Scottish Premiership, 8 goals and 8 starts. But his role on Saturday was interesting because he was coming deep a little bit, but he wasn't always getting on the ball, and you see it for the first goal is a perfect example. So he drops deep. We've got a piece on the website that includes this today. Takes Stephen Kingsley with him, which means that although the move breaks down, he's kind of in the position to play the ball out, and then he's ahead of his man and attacking the box. And Rangers did that really well. They pulled the Hearts line. Hearts wanted to be aggressive and move their team up the pitch. The Rangers just bypassed 6 of their players constantly by going over the top of them. And one of the ways they did that was with Antonio Cholak not always coming to get on the ball, but as I say, moving his marker out of position. Scott Arfield running beyond the 2 wingers stretching the pitch constantly, which leads to the first 2 goals. But Cholak, 8 goals from 3.32 XG. There's 2 sides to that, one of which is that, yes, he might not be able to retain that level of scoring for the majority of the season. But the opposite side to that is if you look at those 8 finishes, the quality that he's done that with consistently, you bank on him definitely breaking the 20-goal mark in the league, and maybe more depending on how many minutes he plays. And in the way that this Rangers team are playing, I guess sometimes you need the clinical strikers because you've not got that abundance of chances. Although at the weekend, as I say, I think there is some context to that with those passes, those number of opportunities that they should have probably executed better that obviously don't result in and actually shots on goal. But then Rangers, they also have a bit of a problem with that, because can you keep Alfredo Morelos on the bench for, I think there's what, 10 games maybe almost in the next month or something until the World Cup. There's a lot of football until November, whatever, until the football stops.
Yeah.
Can you keep Alfredo Morelos on the bench for 60-70% of those games? Not really. Can you bring him off the bench and hopefully one of them scores at each time? Yeah, but you know what I mean? He's one of your highest paid players. You want to keep him at the club. I think it's a maybe what would be called as a cliche, a good headache to have. But certainly at home, I still think there's something to explore, and can they be on the pitch at the same time? Because as you say, Colak is just so lethal, and it's so hard to kind of not play him in a Scottish Premiership game because we know he's going to get chances. And so far, 8 goals and 8 starts, that's hard to argue with, isn't it?
Yeah. No, listen, there's people saying, it's a bit unfair to criticise Colak's all-round play. I'm not really, actually. I don't think he's done much wrong in his all-round play. It's just that he's a penalty box striker. He's the closest thing that Rangers have had to Chris Boyd since Chris Boyd. You know, I mean, even Jermaine Defoe was more involved in the build-up and stuff like that, much more. This guy is just, you know, a clinical finisher, a killer in the box. And if you give him a chance, doesn't matter if it's with his head, with his left foot, with his right foot, he's going to hit the target. And listen, he's overperforming at the moment, and that's obvious. I mean, I can't even remember a missed chance. Yeah, that's how.
Neither can I. Yeah, neither can I.
But you know, I think there's no doubt that if you're looking for someone to come deep, link play, stretch teams, battle with defenders, Alfredo Morelos is going to give you more. But if you're going up against these low blocks, if you're going up against Scottish Premiership teams, listen, and we said all this before he'd even kicked a ball, he looked perfect in that sense. And by goodness me, he has delivered. There's something, Joshua, about Croatian players in Scottish football. I don't know if it's like a national mentality thing, and I'm being deadly serious. You're laughing. I'm being deadly serious here. Rangers should consider more Croatian players, because I think they settle well in Scotland. Croatians and Scots, they've got a kind of similar warrior mentality. And there's not been a failure, really, from Croatia, I don't think. Not one I can think of. I think that's a league that you can get really high-quality technical players from at a decent value. The only one, in terms of the players that's come from Croatia, although he's not Croatian, would have been Eros Grezda, but I think he was Armenian or Albanian. I can't remember what nationality he was.
He played against Scotland. He scored against Scotland at one point in the Nations League, but I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Albania.
Anyway, but he came from a Croatian club. But I think Croatian internationals or Croatian players in general are a good wellspring from Rangers to kind of look at, because the success rate has been remarkable.
Yeah, Colak, I think, just on how involved he is, he's averaged 13 passes per game so far in the league this year. Morelos last season, with the caveat that he probably played a little bit more, but was 30 passes. His expected assists numbers was something like 0.25 a game, and Colak's is something like 0.02. So that's not criticism. That's just a fact. He's less involved. It comes less naturally to him to drop into the middle of the pitch and spin and play a ball in behind or provide for his teammates. His first thought is to finish and find the back of the net, and that's why he scored 8 goals in 8 games. Because when he gets into the penalty box, he is so ruthless, as you say. Different players, which again kind of supplements the argument that perhaps in some games it wouldn't be the worst idea to try and together at home, depending on what other options you have in the Scottish Premiership. But Rangers have St Mirren, Livingston, Dundee, another team at home in the next kind of few weeks. To get players like Tom Lawrence back into that team, who just, it is again from midfield, it's their natural inclination to get into the opposition box, and you see that when we've written about kind of comparing their touches in the opposition box and stuff with other midfield options. I think that's so important as well when you're facing teams. So the Hearts definitely a step in the right direction. But equally, I think what you need to see when Livingston or St Mirren next Saturday, when they come to Ibrox, you need to see that same intensity from the start, because I think when Rangers start with what feels from the outside like a desire to control games, and they play the ball a lot and they have a lot of passes, I think it just plays into the opponent's hands. Because if you gave 10 opponents the option of, right, you're coming to Ibrox and either you're going to have to weather a bit of a storm and they're going to go for you from the start, or they're going to ease into the game and control it and try and get you up the pitch, it suits them, because 20-30 minutes into the game it's 0-0, and that's what every domestic opponent within reason, certainly lower in the table, will want coming to Ibrox. They'll want to try and cancel it out, frustrate the crowd for as long as possible. So hopefully over the international break that kind of has been rectified a bit as well, but we won't know until St Mirren next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good run of games that, Josh, and an opportunity, I think, for Rangers to kind of get back into a groove. Now, it's impossible not to look at what's happening across the city. I mean, Celtic are Rangers' biggest rivals. You have to say at the start of the season, I was looking at their form, a little concerned, tearing teams apart left, right and centre. And the one little straw that I was clinging to was, well, they're not having to play 2 games a week. They are playing 1 game a week and they're looking extremely fresh. They've got a big squad. And I think so it's proven, the minute that they've gone to 2 games a week, the minute they're getting tested in Europe and playing in the Premiership, all of a sudden, it's just got a bit sticky for them. They were sticky against St Mirren, obviously losing 2-0 there, and they were very, very unimpressive against Motherwell there at the weekend. Now, I know, XG-wise, they deserve to win that game. There's no doubt about that. But it wasn't, I didn't think, a very slick Celtic performance. Are we kind of seeing maybe the first examples of, number one, there being a kind of tactical blueprint to shut down this Ange Postecoglou system? And secondly, are they now reverting to the kind of mean that Rangers have faced because Rangers had the 2 games against USG, they had the 2 games against PSV? It's grueling to go up against these mentally challenging opponents and then come back and have to go up against the low block and then go back again in Europe. And then, it's you're raising your game every time and then having to go back to the domestic duties. Are they sort of starting to see that pain that Rangers have already gone through for a little bit longer, given that they had the 2 qualifiers?
I didn't watch. I've not watched back any of their game against Motherwell, so I don't know how they played. I think, is there a blueprint? Do St Mirren give a blueprint? Obviously, it was a year since they'd lost a league game. So if you look at the belief that people had that they would go and drop points away from home when you have been so rampant, you expect them to go and win those games. But I think the thing for Rangers, and this is why the Hearts 3 points was important for one of many reasons. That wouldn't matter anything if Rangers hadn't managed to go and capitalise on it. And I think at points this team haven't been able to do that in the past. They haven't been able to be ruthless. And something that you said a lot is that if you want to win the league title, if Rangers want to win the league title this year, they can't rely on Celtic. They can't rely on other teams to beat Celtic. They need to go and win the next Old Firm to make sure they're 2 points ahead, and then make sure when they go away to different teams that they win, and at home as well. So I think, one of the things that you see with Van Bronckhorst, one of the benefits to his management is he can go away to Tynecastle and he's flexible and he's variable. And if he can't build through the midfield, okay, they go direct and it plays over Hearts midfield and it goes against their game plan, as we said in the piece today, kind of using their aggression against them. But maybe the downside of that is when you are having to break down teams constantly, there's not quite the same attacking cohesion or a rhythm or understanding of this is what we do when we get into this situation, and at points that can lead to the possession that we've seen that hasn't been great. So I think there need to be more difficulties for Celtic away from home than that one game to draw much from it. As I said, I didn't see the Motherwell game, but the thing is, they are creating so many chances, and aside from anything, that's what Rangers need to do, starting with St Mirren next week. I think if Rangers consistently have these games where they're expected goals at home to teams in the Scottish Premiership is 1.8 and 1.9, it'll be hard to win the league title because there'll be the 10th of the 1 in every 10 games or 1 in every 20 games where Cholak doesn't finish that chance, and you're relying on such small margins. So as I say, I think we'll know so much more after this month because Rangers have had so many of these games at home, and as you say, both teams face that schedule where it is intense. You have to rotate. That's obviously what happened to Celtic at St Mirren. And can your squad withstand that? Have you got the quality in reserve to match what the first team are going to give you?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, mate. It's still too early to make any judgment calls on Celtic, but it certainly allows us to be a little bit more positive than we might have been 2 weeks ago when we were still waiting on them to play St Mirren and Rangers had just gone up against Dundee United and looks pretty powder puff, let's be honest. Take away 2 excellent finishes from Cholak once again. Listen, let's wrap this up and call us a day. You've got a long day ahead, and you've had a long day already, given I think you left Glasgow at what, 7:30 this morning?
I left at 7. Yeah, left at 7. I did the Glasgow half yesterday, and then didn't sleep well, so I feel like I'm sleepwalking around Anfield a bit.
Is not going round 11 pubs drinking a half pint in each one. It's a half marathon.
That sounds much more appealing than what I did yesterday morning. But yeah, no,
you're a young man, mate. You're
I know,
limber and light and all that. You should have been able to do that.
Don't feel it today. Knees don't feel it today. But yeah, I felt better. But no, so I think the manager will be Giovanni Van Bronckhorst here at 5, and game tomorrow at 8. B team game tomorrow at 1. So busy couple of days, but looking forward to the game. I think it will be. If Rangers can go and put on something of a performance that makes it into, or even taking something back, because obviously the return leg at Ibrox is next week, that'll make that game a lot more.
Josh has disappeared on us there. Don't know what's happening, but no, he's back.
Sorry,
what happened there, Josh?
I don't know.
Technical problems.
You know what? Yeah.
You got cut off in the middle of it there, but it doesn't matter. We're going to leave with the gallant pioneer's comments about the Ginger James Bond that is Derek Clark. He says, Derek is sitting in one of the hot springs you get in Finland with 6 girls in bikinis drinking champagne. I don't doubt that that's happening right now. I mean, do you?
I think he's away for his wife's birthday, so...
Yes, he is.
So I think I hope he's not watching. He is. He was gutted to be missing the Liverpool game. That is all I will say about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Derek's supremely confident and has been saying since the draw, now's the right time to face Liverpool. I have been cringing every time he says it, because I feel like Rangers don't get themselves sorted out, then it could be a sore one. But listen, time will tell. I'm optimistic as always. Got to think positive, Josh. There's enough negativity in life. What between the mortgages and the blooming economy and Russia and all the rest of it. Got to think positive. No point in getting down and down. Let's just be
agreed.
Let's just be positive. Right, okay, let's call it a day though. That's what we can do. Guys, what I would ask you to do, if you like what we do here, go on and subscribe on the website. It's £1 for the first 2 months, and that gives you access to everything that we do, from deep dive interviews. We've had Stuart Robertson and James Bisgrove in the last couple of weeks, not to mention ex-players. And we do also deep dive tactical analysis headed up by Josh, who knows the game inside out. If you think his analysis is good on this video cast, it's even better in print. We can use diagrams and data and analysis to properly dig into what's happening at the club, what's happening in the games, and bring you a unique insight into Rangers' style of play, Rangers' performances. So that's £1 to subscribe for the first 2 months. It's $2.99 after that. It's a pittance, and well worth it. So go to www.rangersreview.com/subscribe if you want to do that and support us. Right, okay. At that, we shall call it a day. Until next time, thank you very much for watching.